So lesson 9 is all about propositions. So first, let us define what is propositions. Okay, a proposition is a declarative sentence that is either true or false, but not both. So again, when we say proposition, it is a declarative sentence. A declarative sentence is a sentence that declares something, or it's a declaration of something. So it can only be either true or false. So dili pwede duha. Kung true siya, true ra siya. Ug kung false siya, false ra siya. Ana lang ang paingnan sa proposition. Okay. If a proposition is true, then its truth value is true, which is denoted by capital letter T if it is true. Otherwise, its truth value is false, which is denoted by capital letter F. So propositions are usually denoted by small letters. You can use any letters when representing a propositions. Basta kay naka-small letters sila. Okay. For example, this one. This statement here. So this statement uses P for its proposition. So this statement is read as P is the proposition everyone should study logic. So again, this is read as P is the proposition everyone should study logic. Okay, so if a sequence of propositions is considered, so when there are a series or sequence of statements, we denote those propositions by P sub 1, P sub 2, P sub 3, P sub 4, P sub 5, and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's have an example. Now, let us determine whether each of the following statements is a proposition or not. So if it is a proposition, let us give its truth value. Okay. So let's start with P is the proposition Mindanao is an island in the Philippines. Okay, let us investigate. So this is the solution. So your P is a declarative sentence because it is declaring that Mindanao is an island in the Philippines. So, since it is a declarative sentence, it is a proposition. And since Mindanao is really an island in the Philippines, therefore, your P is a true proposition. Okay? Let's proceed to the other example. Q is the proposition, find a number which divides your age. Okay. Now, your Q is an imperative sentence. What do we mean by imperative sentence? When we say imperative sentence, it's a sentence that forms a command or a request. So as you can see, your Q here is asking for us to find a number that will divide your age. So it's actually commanding us or requesting us to find a number. So it is an imperative sentence. So it is not a declarative sentence, therefore it is not a proposition. Okay? Let's proceed to other example. So R is the proposition my seatmate will get a perfect score in the logic exam. So the statement here is a declarative sentence. It is a declarative sentence because it is declaring that his or her classmates will have a perfect score on the logic exam. But, so it is a proposition because it is a declarative sentence. But we cannot identify its truth value yet. Why? Because, dili pa ta makabalo kung maka-perfect, kung true bang iyang statement or false. Because ay pa ta makabalo kung true ba siya or false if humana ang logic exam. No? So, kung humana ang logic exam, diha pa na nato ma-determine kung true ba iyang giistorya, nga perfect ba sila tanan or false ba iyang giistorya. Okay? But, it is a proposition because it is a declarative sentence. Okay, again, another. S is the proposition, welcome to the Philippines. Okay. So, class, as you can see in our S statement, it is in exclamatory form. Welcome to the Philippines. So, it is not a declarative sentence. No? So, therefore, obviously, it is not a proposition. Another. T is the proposition 3 plus 2 is equal to 5. Okay. It is a mathematical sentence, but if we are going to translate it into English, this will read as the sum of 3 and 2 is 5. So it's a declarative sentence because it is declaring that the sum of those two numbers is 5. So therefore, it is a proposition. And since 3 plus 2 is really equal to 5, so it is a true proposition. Okay? Let's have another. U is the proposition f of x is equal to square root of x over x plus 1 is a rational function. Okay. So still, it is a declarative sentence because it is declaring something, no? But your numerator, so it is, again, it is a declarative statement. So since it is a declarative sentence or statement, therefore it is a proposition. But the numerator of the function, as you can see, the numerator is in the form square root of x. So your x is under the radical sign. So it is not a polynomial function. So the function f is not rational function. So the statement is false. So it is a proposition and it is false. Therefore, it is a false proposition. Okay, let's proceed. Okay, V is the proposition. What is the domain of the function? Okay, again, V is the proposition. What is the domain of the function? So your V class is an interrogative sentence. When we say interrogative sentence, it's an asking sentence. So let us go back to the definition of declarative sentence. When we say of the proposition, when it's a proposition, it should be a declarative sentence. So since V is not a declarative sentence, therefore it is not a proposition. Okay, let's have W is the proposition I am lying. Okay. W class is a declarative sentence. No, it is declarative sentence because she or he is declaring that he or she is lying. But it cannot be considered as proposition. Why? Ganyan, di ba? I already told you that a proposition it is a declarative sentence and it can only be either true or false. But the statement na I am lying, we cannot identify if it is really true or if it is false. Ngayon naman, di naman takabalo kung tinuod ba nga mo yung siya nga I am lying or tinuod ba nga, or dili ba tinuod yung siya I am lying. No, murag, it's a statement nga magduha-duha kag tuo kung tinuod ba or dili. Because it's actually not factual. No? Okay, so, but if we are going to assume that that statement is true nga I am lying. So, pasabot, statement is not true nga I am lying siya. If mag-assume po ta nga false siya, maybe pwede pa po siya ma-consider nga proposition. If there is an assumption. But since the statement does not have any assumption, therefore, it is not a proposition. So, nga na ang proposition, dapat true ra yun siya o false. Dili pwede nga malibog ka kung true ba or false. Dapat sigurado ka nga true siya o sigurado ka nga false siya. Okay? Let's proceed. Okay. Let's have this sequence of propositions. Now, let us identify if this sequence of propositions or statements is a proposition or not. So, let's start with P sub 1. P sub 1 is the proposition, it is not the case that square root of 2 is a rational number. Okay. Of course, since it is declaring that the square root of 2, it is not the case that square root of 2 is a rational number, it is a declarative sentence. So it is a proposition. no? But in identifying its truth value, it is false because when we say rational number class, it's actually quotient of two integers, no? And square root of 2 cannot be expressed as the quotient of two integers. So therefore, you state your P sub 1 statement is a false proposition. Okay, let's proceed to P sub 2. P sub 2 is the proposition either logic is fun and interesting or it is boring. Okay, so your P sub 2 class is also declaring something na it is declaring that logic is fun, interesting, and it is boring. So, pasok siya. It is a proposition since it's a declarative sentence. Now, and the truth value of this is true. Why? Because it is true that students may find logic either fun or boring. Because diba, nabahin mo na ang mga estudyante karon na ubang estudyante nga ganahag logic, ay uban nga dili. So, sakto siya. Therefore, your P sub 2 is a true proposition. Okay? Let's have P sub 3. P sub 3 is the proposition if you're a grade 11 student, then you are a Filipino. So it's still a declarative sentence. It's not asking for something. It's not commanding for something. It's not requesting for something. It's not an exclamatory form. So it's a declarative sentence. But okay, since it's declarative sentence, we can consider that as a proposition. But it is not true. Why? Because there are also grade 11 students that are not Filipino. There are grade 11 students that are of other nationalities. So therefore, your P sub 3 is a false proposition. Okay? So let's proceed to our last example for proposition. Okay. P sub 4 is the proposition if you are more than 60 years old, then you are entitled to a senior citizen's card. If you are entitled to a senior citizen's card, then you are more than 60 years old. Okay. So P sub 4 is a declarative sentence. No? So since it is a declarative sentence, it is considered as a proposition. And it is true. Why? Because if you are really a 60 years old, then you will really be entitled to have a senior citizen's card. So therefore, your P sub 4 is a true proposition. But, and it is also known as a biconditional statement. When we say biconditional statement, it's a statement with an if and only if connectors. Okay? Okay, so those are another examples of propositions. Declarative and the statements were either true and false. Okay, let's proceed to another. When we say proposition class, we can actually separate it into two. There is what we call compound proposition and there is what we call simple proposition. So when we say compound proposition, it is a proposition formed from simpler proposition using logical connectors. So a compound proposition has connectors. So compound propositions can be or may be expressed as not P, P and Q, P or Q, if P, then Q. So the connectors there is not, and, or, if, and, then. Okay. Where these stands for proposition. So a proposition is simple if it cannot be broken down any further. So simple siya kung dili na siya mabulag-bulag ang statement. Okay, simple na siya. Okay, let's have an example. Let us determine whether it is a simple or a compound proposition. If it is a compound proposition, identify the simple components. Okay. Wait lang ha. Okay, here. Your P, Q, R, and S are simple propositions. Why? Because it is just stating one statement. No, dili na siya pwede broken down into any further. But the statements here below, P sub 1, P sub 2, P sub 3, and P sub 4 are examples of compound propositions. Okay. Let's have number P sub 1. P sub 1, it is the proposition. It is not the case that square root of 2 is a rational number. It is a compound proposition because it uses not. Okay? It uses a connector not. Another, P sub 2. Either logic is fun and interesting or it is boring. Okay, so it uses the connector and or. If you study hard, then you will get good grades. So this statement uses connector if and then. And then P sub 4, if you are more than 60 years old, then you're entitled to a senior citizen's card. And if you are entitled to a senior citizen's card, then you are more than 60 years old. So still a compound proposition because it uses a connector if and then. So these four statements here are examples of compound propositions. Now, let us find the simple components or the simple propositions of those compound propositions. Okay, so let's have this. Okay, in P sub 1, your simple component or your simple proposition there is square root of 2 is a rational number. And for P sub 2, your simple components there or your simple propositions, you have 3. You can actually divide the statement into 3. Or you can actually break down the statement into 3. So these are the 3. Pwede na siya, bisag unsa nga letters inyong gamito na. Basta kay small letters siya. So you can break it down into preposition F, I, and B. So logic is fun, logic is interesting, and logic is boring. Dili nagikan sa P sub 2. No? So tuluman ka buok adjective ang iyang gigamit. So pwede nato siya bulag-bulagon tulo. So for P sub 3, the simple proposition of the statement sa P sub 3 is duha. Duha ka simple component or simple proposition, ba? Diri if you study hard, then you will get good grades. So you can actually get the statement nga gisundan ni if o the statement nga gisundan ni then. Okay, so H is the proposition you study hard and G is the proposition you get good grades. So mo nay duha ka statement imong ma-produce from the original statement. Okay, sa P sub 4 pod, here, pwede po nato ma-breakdown si if after ni if nga statement o after ni then nga statement. So, duha ka proposition. You are more than 6 years old and you are entitled to a senior citizen's card. Card ni. Okay? So, these are the propositions or those propositions can be or can thus be expressed as follows. So for P sub 1 here, magamit na og not R. So not square root of 2 is a rational number. For P sub 2, if and I or B. So logic is fun and logic is interesting or logic is boring. So, pwede siya masumpay-sumpay. Kaya kung mubalik ka sa compound, maragyapan na iyang forma. No? So, there is a P sub 3, if H, then G. Okay, so, sorry. If you study hard, then you get good grades. And for piece of 4, if A, then S. So if you are more than 6 years old, then you are entitled to a senior citizens card, or pwede po ibali, if you are entitled to a senior citizens card, then you are more than 60 years old. Okay? So that, or those are the differences of compound proposition and simple proposition. So again, it is simple proposition if it cannot be broke down into any further. Kung dili na siya mabulag-bulag ang statement. But if the statement uses connectors, then that is considered as a compound proposition. And if it actually states more than one statement. Okay? So again, proposition is a declarative sentence that can either be true or false. So that's it for today. Thank you and God bless. Study hard.